Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Brightworks in another match of Beyond All Reason. Today we're taking a look at a brand new map that just hit the pool. Goes by the name of Breath of Hades, I believe. Oh gosh, I better check this. Live on camera, Feast of Hades, that's right. Feast of Hades, gonna be a interesting map. Sort of a spawn of a different map, Pools of Hades or Pawns of Hades, something like that. Was another map with a similar aesthetic, had the colored crystals all over had some really cool stuff going on, but this is a bit of a smaller map, but nonetheless, we're gonna be playing a nice 8 versus 8 game and spawning. On our front line, representing the blue team is an Armada commander. All things are as they should be. Going into a bot lab goes by the name of Evangelion. Evangelion, our blue team leader, hailing at 23 true skill and a silver tail to speak of as well. I feel like we need more distinction, right? We need like a 500 hours, a 750, a 1000, all that sort of stuff. I think this is the 500 hour mark. I could be well wrong about that though. All the way on the other side, spawning on the northern side of the red team, Ethan the Epic. 25 true skill and hailing from America, gonna be showing us what the USA is bringing to the table. Spawning in the northern side of the red team as a whole. Let's take a look around the map, shall we? Now, I haven't gotten a good chance to take a look around this map all too often here. It does look like it's sort of a backline, frontline kind of a map, similar to the way, for instance, Supreme Isthmus does work. Frontline, backline maps, they're interesting. They offer you essentially one player the opportunity to tech as much as possible. Although, arguably on this map, there's sort of two roles that might, or two positions rather, that might do that. You could imagine B-Bad as well as Brickford Grace both maybe having the opportunity to tech here, although I wouldn't mind either seeing one of those go for, yeah, some air plays here. Realistically, I think there's probably just not enough spots for 8v8. It feels like this map's a little small for 8v8. Oh, and would you look at that? Apparently we have Legion enabled as well. Lovely, lovely stuff. I'm always a big fan of Legion. They've definitely got some powerful robots. The Ballista, specifically, extremely fun to play with. It's a medium rocket bot. So normally the rocket bots are quite squishy. The Ballista, quite the contraire. Very expensive, but also you get quite a tanky unit. Very fun to play with on the front lines. You also have access to that Goblin, which is really nice. It's a very, very small Gundam suit little boy that runs around and causes havoc, wrecks havoc on, well, just about anything. Ticks, grunts, pawns, all of it. It outranges just about all of them, meaning that it does phenomenally on the front lines as a scout/harass unit. Speaking of harassment here, a metal extractor goes down as well as a radar tower. These ticks aren't quite done yet though. They're gonna go after the solar panel. There's 3 of them, which is enough of a menace to certainly tear down some economies here. So far doing a lot of damage, but not actually doing any damage. There we go. Wind turbines finally explode, eventually sending an explosion through the majority of them and taking down a huge portion of the economy right here for the yellow commander, who transported themselves all the way up to this northern pothole. Gonna be digging themselves into the trenches here and trying to find themselves a little bit of a comfortable zone over here. This fighter was desperately trying to shoot down that transport. It looks like it got pretty close, but did not manage to shoot that yellow commander out of the air. That would have been an excellent pick. It was a wonderful play by the green commander, our air player here for the blue team, trying to get that done. Didn't manage to pull it off though. Kozaish, the powder blue commander, has opted to just walk. Definitely a viable strategy, going for a little bit of a walk, just moving on over in this direction. And we've got ourselves a nice little line of scrimmage set up here. Yeah, gonna be north corner versus south corner, northwest corner versus southeast corner. Yeah, I think that should be a good matchup right there. Evangelion, move to the front right here, gonna be capturing a whole bunch of metal. There's a little bit of a fight going on as well. Couple of pawns trading out against a couple of grunts. Not the end of the world right there for certainly any commander, losing a couple of grunts on the front lines, especially in an 8 versus 8. But it definitely does mean that you lose a little bit of that vision and a little bit of that control out on the map, slowly but surely. Mace trading very efficiently over there as well. Single tech harassment is quite potent. Running around and catching these uncontested mexes, or these unguarded mexes, I should say. These naked mexes, as I've heard it called before. Quite like that term. I think it fits it well. Yeah, this mace has done incalculable damage, killing 3 grunts. A 4th one nearly fell right there, but not going to be the case. And Ethan the Epic expanding like a madman. So I love to see this. This is going to be tons and tons of metal going back to the red commander here, which does mean, of course, that we can field a tremendous army on the front lines right now. I expect that, yeah, energy is going to be an issue right here. You do have these green rocks, these, well, multicolored rocks, I should say. There's green and orange and blue and all sorts of other colors. They're chock full of energy, so if you eat them up, they fund your energy reserves quite judiciously. Master Chief trying to hold the lines. Our defense against the alien menace, I suppose, going to be trying to stop the purple from moving forward right here. Digging their heels in and setting up a line. Evangelion finds himself in a weird situation here. Suddenly they've got this fabulous little forward outpost, but they're actually fairly surrounded by the enemy. So it's going to be a tricky battle right here for our blue commander to try and maintain control of all this. Meanwhile, pawns running across the map. A couple of them find a constructor over here. Oh, can we peel some of those off? One or two of them to peel off and take care of that constructor would be fabulous. A couple of them do peel off to kill these metal extractors over here. Fabulous control right there from Ethan the Epic. Lovely, lovely stuff. Meanwhile, Valkyrie is finally set up over here, so we do see a couple of those bots rolling their way out of the laboratory up on the northern side. Eventually, those will be applying pressure to the bad guy, the lavender player, the purple lavender player. Evangelion notices, though, the massive run-by path right here. So yeah, indeed, we do have a massive open hillside right here that the blue commander is going to take advantage of. A little bit of a scuffle over here as well. Nirexo very low on HP after pushing into the LLTs of Dia. There go the pawns, though, trying to claw their way into the backlines. They will be spotted right here. Looks like the Rocketeer will make first contact. Not your ideal solution to a bunch of grunts or pawns running across. Not the end of the world either, though. Red Commander starts up a beamer turret. Might not be necessary, though. Yeah, LLT gonna do a decent job of cleaning this up. Gonna lose a bunch of wind turbines for it, but I think that's fairly well deflected. There we go. Beamer turret finally finishes up. You know what? That was a lot of wind turbines, and I don't think we're quite done yet. Yeah, pawn's gonna continue moving into the backline. There's no units out right now from the brown commander in order to defend themselves. That means these pawns have run of the field here to do a whole bunch more damage. How much more can they do? Beckford Grace going for that T2 bot lab right now, trying to get a tech advantage, but those pawns are in the backline. There we go. Luckily for the red team, the pawns run out of APM, but the Incisor will eventually clean all this up. Very, very lucky right there that those pawns didn't continue running. Pop the economy over here for the powder pink player, maybe shut down some of these solar panels here. I guess there's an LLT to defend, but all will be said and done. Very well deflected for the red team. At the end of the day, a couple of metal extractors and some wind turbines lost. Not the end of the world. Certainly inconvenient, though. Now, Ethan the Epic has stepped very far forward here. Excessively far forward for a commander. Yeah, finding himself in a tricky situation. Those missile trucks don't do a lot of damage, but they're essentially getting damage for free right now. Never a comfortable moment, that. Meanwhile, Commander Explosion. Whoa, where was that? There it is. Commander Explosion over here. That was the commander for Nirexo, the one that we saw go very low health after running into the LLTs over here of Dia, and it looks like at the end of the day, that low health commander did perish, and that's going to be a nice healthy chunk of metal going right back to the tan commander. Traffic now moving forward, trying to close the gap right here, and I appreciate that quite a lot. Shutting that down with a couple of LLTs going to be more than enough to prevent any run-bys, or at the very least soften up any run-bys so they can be more easily dealt with in the future. Maces and Rocketeers, it's a expensive composition for Master Chief, so I'm expecting Resbots, and we do already have one on the field, but I think we need to see quite a few more. If those Resbots can get underfoot and get everything recycled or resurrected, either one of those works, then I think this works out quite nicely here. But for the time being, this is definitely looking a little bit risky as Master Chief goes up 2 versus 1. Gonna be tricky to hold here. Dia needs to set some pressure, needs to push down on the gas, and hopefully push back Kosage a little bit harder here. Wouldn't mind some run-bys through and around into the economies of the backline right here. Currently, the 2 versus 1 pressure for Master Chief looks like it's going to be crumbling that front line. Eventually, Valkyrie gets jumped on by a bunch of vehicles over here as well, setting up a gauntlet. Very expensive. You can get it up and running. It might be in a cool position here. Yeah, it's not bad. It could definitely fire away at this front line over here. It could do quite a lot of damage. Valkyrie body blocking with the commander right here, of all things. It's quite funny. We actually have enough resources to finish this thing. It's just going to take a minute. Riot tanks blasting those Rocketeers to pieces. Oh, no. LLT is going to do a little bit better to clean those riot tanks up. D-Gun's certainly going to carve those to pieces as well. But there's no denying that this gauntlet needs to come up immediately. This thing is a Hail Mary right here for the Yellow Commander. I think a couple more Rocketeers would have probably been a better investment. But we have to live with our decisions and face the repercussions. And typically going for a gauntlet, the repercussion is going to be 1,000 metal down the drain, no units on the field, and a crumbled front line. Valkyrie probably soon to experience that for themselves as the gauntlet evaporates into thin air. The commander explodes, the front line evaporates, and as it was told, Lisan Al-Gaib has predicted, and there it is, written in the sands. Can you tell I watched Dune again? Written in the sands, the Yellow Commander will fall down here, and that's going to be an excellent, if unstoppable, push here on the northern side. Tons and tons of damage imminent over on that side. Meanwhile, Master Chief has actually connected this front line quite nicely here. We are going for a radar tower, but we've got enough sturdy units on the front. These maces are lending quite a lot of sustain to this composition. If nothing else, they definitely give it an air of rigidity. Here go the pawns jumping on top of Kosage. The flame turret doing an excellent job of keeping this all alive. Oh, that was a clean D-gun too. Manages to blast away those pawns without managing to clip the edge of that turret right there, the dragon spawn turret. Very, very nicely done. This run by is going to do so much damage. So much economy has been built over here. Quite nice spacing by these by the Orange Commander on these energy converters. Will mean that they won't chain react, but it's not going to matter if you don't have units to defend it. It looks like Valkyrie has handed everything off here to the Orange Commander, interestingly. Handed everything off, but hasn't left the game. I guess not willing to lose. You know, they don't want their stats at the end of the game to show damage taken. So if you hand it off to the other commanders, then it doesn't look like you took the damage. This will be the Orange Commander taking damage. Now, understandably, there's no constructors left here for the Yellow Commander, so effectively out of this game right now. At this point, it's going to be up to Traffic to try and figure out how to cobble together some sort of a defense here. We do have an Agitator up on this high ground, so that's quite nice. Sort of passively pushing back the Blue Commander and making it very uncomfortable to stand out on this field. I don't mind that one bit, especially as a Legion Commander, because you do have access to these, the overcharged metal extractors, which give you 2x metal income as opposed to 4x from the advanced metal extractors, the Moho metal extractors. It's a bit of a strange interaction, the Legion advanced metal extractors, but they are quite valuable and certainly allow you to fund some much more expensive operations. Beamer turret, quite nice here for actually dealing with some of these Rocketeers. That was the Blue Commander going down in the middle of the map here. Cacophony turret comes up as well, firing away a hail of bullets at a million RPM a second. Little run by over here as well, taking down whatever they can. Couple of pawns jumping on top of some Wolverines. That's exactly where you want to put them. Heavy laser turret here, not going to be bad for dealing with some of those pawns. Cleaning those up eventually. Riot tank going to be a whole hell of a lot better though. Flinging those pawns across the battlefield like it's nobody's business. All said and done, definitely recoverable amounts of damage right there. This northern side falling does hurt though. Suddenly the concave goes from being a essentially straight line directly down the diagonal of this map to now wrapping around the red team. They're going to be on the back foot here as more and more pressure is applied to different sections of the map. Suddenly we're going to find ourselves in a much less balanced matchup here. Expecting a T2 transition. There it is. We do have the T2 lab plop down right here for the red commander, who will be no doubt eating up that wreckage of the commander and using it to fund a nice juicy T2 transition. We're talking T2 constructors, T2 metal extractors, T2 everything and the above. Heavy laser tower over here, the Overwatch, the area control laser tower, blasting away at whatever it can. Has quite high range, which makes it very valuable for locking down specific areas, but also it is T1. And as we know of the T1, not particularly fabulous against anything like, say, for instance, T2. T2 should be on the dockets for everybody on the blue team at this point. We are well into this game, and indeed, Stannis already has some of those T2 units coming up and onto the field right here, benefiting from the luxury of being behind another commander, so didn't have to worry so much about producing units. All that metal can go back into producing economy, meaning that our green hero is going to be much more ahead as far as the economic game goes. Brickford Grace, also on T2, has the T2 mexes up and running. We have the fusion as well. Let's get this fusion up and running. Wouldn't mind seeing these solar panels eaten up, by the way. Speaking of which, I've been testing it for myself, and I think the math adds up. I think the fusion reactor strategy is quite viable. Yeah. In case you're curious, there's been a discourse in the Discord, the Brightworks Discord, as to whether or not it's better to go for fusions or advanced fusions. And as it turns out, and take this with a grain of salt because I haven't verified these numbers on my own, but I do trust that enough people have looked them over that it makes sense. Essentially, the fusions actually make more sense in the early game because you don't have enough build power to put up the aphises efficiently. And so what it means is you can get the fusions up and running quite a lot quicker. It means you can start pumping units out, start gaining more ground, start reclaiming metal, or just start producing metal a whole lot quicker. Yeah, it turns out the fusions work out pretty well. Rocketeer is definitely being a nuisance here. We do have a Rattlesnake underway right now, but it isn't anywhere near complete. We're still, 42% of the way there. We do have to be a little bit wary. This is a full-blown vehicle composition. We've got medium tanks, Wolverines, Whistlers, Lashers, all firing away in tandem. Going to be very difficult to break through, especially for a bot army composing mostly of Rocketeers. Rocketeer is quite powerful, but definitely very slow, at least in comparison to those medium tanks. Nice D-guns there. Shutting down some of those. You have to be careful. Traffic is a Legion commander, so does not have access to the D-gun. If that unfortunate commander is beset upon by enough units, there's virtually nothing they can do. No way to claw themselves out of a bad situation like that, where normally a couple of really well-placed D-guns and you might be able to recover. Not going to be an option for the Orange commander here, at the very least, on the front lines. One of the drawbacks of playing Legion, I suppose. There are many upsides, but there is certainly some drawbacks as well. It is worth upgrading, by the way, your overcharged metal extractors to your advanced metal extractors. The advanced metal extractors taking 20 energy per second, whereas the overcharged ones take 30. So you actually gain money and you gain energy. Granted, 10 energy back per metal extractor is not tremendous, but it certainly helps. Every speck of energy that doesn't have to go into passive economy can eventually go into building more units for the front lines, for instance. Little single riot tank moving on over in this direction. Okay, takes down a LLT over there. Hero LLT will avenge his brother, though. Shuriken's also permanently latched onto this anti-swarm pounder over there, the riot tank. Not bad. Little bit of an ugly mix-up right here. We do have the Hounds somehow getting within range of a lot of these T1 units. That's definitely not supposed to happen. Hounds have tremendous range on them. You can see very, very extreme range on these Hounds, able to fire away from quite a distance here. Certainly T1 defenses should be no threat. T1 units likewise. Similarly, we have T2 Hounds pushing back on the forces right here of the Powder Blue Commander. Lovely stuff. Now we do have a T2 economy up and coming right here for our Powder Blue Commander, Kozaish. Love to see that T2 transition. Getting the T2 transition up and running before getting the T2 units up and running, the T2 economy before the T2 units, very powerful indeed. It means you have more time to build up metal using that T2 economy before you actually transition to production. Means you can afford more economy or more units regardless of whichever one you decide to go for in the end. Heavy laser tower trying to connect over here. This is the importance of including radar towers and radar bots and radar jammers. All that good stuff is to make sure that your Hounds stay nice and safe while they're shelling away at the enemy. You can become very, very efficient by just including a couple of key support units. The T2 transition has been well underway, by the way, for the Red Commander for some time now. Looks like we're going for a mixed composition of Hounds and Welders. 2-to-1 ratio. Me personally, I prefer a 1-to-1. But that's up to you, man. That's one of the best things about this game is that everybody has their specific favorite way to play, and there's certainly a lot of them. Oh, I love this move right here. This is a move that I always talk about, and I practice this as much as I preach it, I promise. When you have a T2 transition, like for instance the red player does, or he's going into these T2 units, your T1 Rocketeers are not going to be able to get any value anymore, so it's best bet to eat them up on the front line now that you've got a couple of units out, so that you can use these units as their metal to pump out way more efficient T2 units. I know it seems strange to devour your own army, but I promise you can trust me, it's a very efficient way of getting your T2 army set up, or your T2 economy, because these units do amount to quite a lot of metal. I mean, you can see we've got almost 1,000 metal and Rocketeers still, and we've been eating these for a good long minute. Much more efficient than, say, losing them all and then reclaiming the wreckages, where you only get back about 70% of the metal that you invested in them. Now, we are having a terrible E-stall right now. Red Commander horribly behind as far as the energy production goes. Gonna need to remedy that with either a whole bunch of solar panels, advanced or otherwise, or go for maybe a couple of fusion reactors, either one of which is going to be an excellent way of solving that issue, but it needs to be addressed right now because the Welders, as prominent and powerful as they are incapable of firing if they don't have any sort of energy support. Do we have... yeah, we don't have any fusion reactors, no fusion power whatsoever, so our capability of our army is entirely dependent on the wind speed. Pretty funny if you think about it. Rocket Spiders and Thugs. Strange composition, but highly effective, especially against static units or big lines of units. The Rocket Spider is very capable under very specific circumstances. Outside those circumstances, however, they can be not as capable. Certainly quite a bit worse. There we go. Finding some good connections here because these Hounds are jumping straight into the spiders as opposed to strafing left and right. That's the ideal way to kite against these, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, there was only a couple of those spiders. This is a full-blown T2 transition, and we already have the units to reclaim everything. The res bots, I mean. And, oh, actually, we're going to go for a res here. All right, quite nice. We're very low on energy, so I'm surprised to see that, but I suppose it works. While the energy is high, it's well worth investing in. I really desperately think we need a fusion reactor, though. There we go. Yeah, the Red Commander eventually going to get one of those plopped down here, but it is going to be a good hot minute. Weber's coming out now. Now, I have been a fan of Weber's for a long, long time, but after showcasing them recently, I feel like they've definitely taken to popularity here. They are so powerful, a ridiculously powerful force. For only 250 metal, easy for them to reclaim that much metal off of a battlefield and become very, very efficient. There's also a widget, by the way, if you hit F11, this is a little tip for anybody, if you hit F11, it pulls up your widget menu. There is a widget called Stun and Reclaim Enemy Units. It's available, let's see, there was a link to it on the Brightworks Discord channel. Link to that is down below in the description, but I'm sure you can find it on the official bar website or the bar Discord as well. Ask around and you shall find. Essentially reprograms the webbers so that they focus on reclaiming units that they've stunned. Makes them hilariously effective at taking T2 armies and turning them into metal to fund more webbers, for instance, or more units of any sort. But they're incredibly good at, for instance, this sort of thing, where now 2 of them have died, but it's no matter. You simply reclaim them and forge them into new webbers. Now, obviously, you're always going to lose a little bit of metal in that, but you can supplement that with whatever economy that you have to produce units and produce structures, all that sort of stuff in the backline. All I'm trying to say is that the Weber is a very efficient way of making your T2 dreams come true. Somebody put it really well in one of the Discord channels, talking about how the Weber looks OP when you first use it, but really what it teaches you is just how to reclaim and scale your eco properly. And they said that wasn't really the Weber that was OP. It was just that you learn how to resurrect and reclaim, which is OP. And I thought that was probably just about the best takeaway I've ever heard. Pretty much spot on right there. As far as OP mechanics in this game goes, Reclaim has got to be on the very, very top. EMP takes a close second, and obviously the Webers. Pretty much the best of both worlds. Little medium tank run by. Same situation though. These medium tanks would have been much more efficient if we had just eaten all this up. These Wolverines and Lashers, all this similar story. If we had just eaten all this up and turned it into a bunch of metal, just used its metal value to go for T2 units, it would have traded much more efficiently than it is right now. That's the reason why you want to reclaim all that stuff. As it stands right now, Welders, Rocket Spiders, Hounds, all of it, gonna have a fabulous time blasting it all to smithereens. Those lightning cannons doing serious damage, especially to big clumped up groups of units like this. Chaining that lightning bolt between each of these units right here, making this really, really efficient for these welders to stomp across the battlefield. I have essentially a bottomless well of praise for the welder. The reason is not that it's the best unit in the game. It's not that it's the strongest. It's not that it does the most damage. There's a lot of other units that do more burst damage. There's a lot of other units that are way tankier. It's the fact that the welder is such a good jack of all trades. It does its job. It does every job that it does just about perfectly. It does it just medium par, and it does it all for an affordable price. It's the good assault unit, the good defense unit, the good anti-spam unit. It's good across all fields, and I think that makes it extremely valuable in virtually any composition or competition. Tournament certainly likely to bring them out. Resbot's having a field day up here, putting back together all those medium tanks. Now it's a even more complicated strategy, but you could always resurrect things and then reclaim them to get their full metal price out of them. That's a very, very efficient way to play, but also very APM intensive. So if you feel like managing that, it is technically the most efficient way of reclaiming things. However, it of course costs you quite a lot of energy and quite a lot of time. And oftentimes those are the time more than anything, really the most expensive resource you have to utilize in a game. Medium tanks blasted asunder by the tail cannons here of the Hounds. More than happy to fire away at all of those medium bad boys, but these are going to be a much bigger issue. Heavy tanks rolling out to the field now. The next gen of tank marching out. Armor considerably thicker. The steel plating underneath those twin Gauss cannons, quite powerful, quite good at dealing with, for instance, pesky T2 bots. Pop-up Gauss cannon here, performing wonderfully, I will note. Doing an excellent job of doing a ton of damage to these heavy tanks. And you know what? This is the power of the bots. You have all these bots going down right here, but really, all you've really got is a whole bunch of metal that's ripe for the reclamation. Could certainly be very valuable. Now we've had a T3 transition in the backline right here. A couple of Marauder run out by Brickford Grace. Love to see that we were on task here, keeping an eye on the vision, trying to make sure that we were always producing units with a goal, right? We're not just building units arbitrarily or building eco arbitrarily. We did have a goal here, and the goal was a couple of Marauder across the back. They will meet a Razorback here shortly. It'll be up to the Pink Commander to make sure that these don't run right into the Razorback and get obliterated. A little bit of kiting later, whole bunch of advanced solar panels falling. Striders jumping on top of this as well. Webbers jumping in for the reclaim here. EMP reworks slowing down that Marauder, and luckily, with the support of this Razorback, those Marauder will be deflected fairly conveniently. Losing those advanced solars definitely hurts right now, especially while building an advanced fusion, but it's not the end of the world, certainly. Resbots reclaiming everything over here. They're reclaiming all the walls and everything as well. Yeah, a couple hundred metal and walls up there. Not particularly the most metal dense thing in the known universe, but, you know, certainly one of the things of all time. Big old tick ball moving forward right here, causing a lot of AoE splash damage from the Fat Boy, but basically everything else stays up and running. We did lose the jammer over here, which is a little bit of a problem. Dia just absolutely porking to hell this northern, well, this, I guess, western section of the map right here, making sure that no units push through there at any cost. Razorbacks now marching forward. This is the problem. This is where those Legion commanders can get in trouble. Very powerful, but also at some point the Legion commander falls off quite quickly. That point being basically the T3 era. You can see that commander trying desperately to blast down these Razorbacks, but with no hope of a D-gun, it's going to be quite difficult. Fat Boy trying to kill these recluses. Recluses more than happy to disintegrate it. There we go. Looks like we got the reclaim enabled right here. Just like that. Thousands and thousands of metal being pulled by those spiders and sent back to the laboratories. Marauder are going down right here in storms as well. If we get a surround on the Razorback, the Marauder can deal with them. Not the case here, though, and tons of Marauder will go down. I guess the Razorback are going down, too, and at the very least, it's all on the red team's side, so they'll be happy about that. But there's no denying that losing all those Marauder, when I'm sure they were destined for a push of some sort, definitely hurts quite a bit. Now, shutting down the Sharpshooters here is quite nice. Always important to keep on top of these, especially when Sharpshooters start to snowball. Most effective way to prevent Sharpshooters from snowballing is to kill them early on. Don't let Sharpshooters snowball to prevent Sharpshooters from snowballing. Sounds obvious, but it is, you know, not always the not always the intended case. We do have laser heavy taggers as well. I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly which mod option enables all these. The experimental units, perhaps, or maybe they were playing with Hornets mod options. But anyways, does mean we also have these siege breakers, by the way, an extremely cool unit. Sort of very similar to the Cataphract that we have the mod option for, the tweak units for. Makes it fire a turbo laser blast as opposed to firing, for instance, a big steady stream, but you can actually toggle between the two options, which makes it quite powerful. Spybot over here looking for an entrance. Not gonna find one, though. Oh, trying to dodge the hounds. There they go. They do find it eventually. Very nicely done. Pulsar set up over here, definitely making this a pain to push into. We're setting up pulsars and bulwarks and all sorts of other stuff outside of range, just barely outside of range here to make sure that we don't take too much damage from that static defense. We're definitely getting towards that late game, though. And we've got a proper economy for scaling over here. Lovely looking stuff right now for the Green Commander. We've got the Aphysis set up. We've got the E-Converter set up. It's all in a nice little line here as well, so the build power is nice and centralized. This is what a good eco looks like. We've also gone for a couple of the pinpointers. Very, very useful, especially for anybody using sharpshooters. Very, very useful for the sharpshooters. One of those units that benefits tremendously from the pinpointers. Some units benefit a little bit, some units benefit quite a bit more. The sharpshooter definitely one of them. The sharpshooter is extremely cost inefficient to fire. It takes 1,000 energy per shot to fire the sharpshooter. So, whenever you fire it, you want to make sure that you make damn good use of it. Razorback having to be cautious right here. Because they have the pinpointer, they know exactly where that commander is, though, so those lasers will connect. Boom goes Master Chief right there. Down goes the pink commander. That's going to be the end of the D-gun possibility right here on the front lines. Dragons rolling out at this point. Quite expensive to field those dragons, so definitely going to want to use them well. Use them efficiently. No fighters whatsoever for the blue team, however. Certainly something that the Maroon Commander could do well to scout. If we realized that there were no fighters here for the blue team, maybe we could have done something to capitalize on it. For instance, sending in a whole bunch of bombers, sending in a whole bunch of fighters, sending in, oh, I don't know, a couple of dragons too. Anti-air will eventually shoot those dragons down, by the way. Making short work of those very expensive Cortex, basically T3 air units. 4,500, I believe the dragon is. No, 5,100. Extremely expensive. What's the cost of a Razorback? It's about the same, right? Oh no, it is not. A Razorback actually cheaper than the dragon. Ain't that a twist? Razorbacks cheaper than dragons. These front lines are getting ready to mount a movement, though. You can see we're just tense with possibility right now. The Green Commander setting up a little bit of spam over here to make sure that we're constantly keeping ourselves well maintained. Vision, line of sight, all that good stuff. Making sure that there's a constant stream of it. I will EMP here, 1 sec, says Nebuchadnezzar. Razorback moving in already, though. Yeah, I mean, this is just a Legion Commander holding all this, so as long as it's a Legion Commander up here, you can basically move whatever units you want in, and they're going to be just fine. Razorback having a field day, blasting apart the Rattlesnake. It'll take down the Cacophonies, take down just about everything. Jammer goes up, single T3 unit, mounting a stalwart offensive right here. Eventually brought low by those multi-launch, rapid plasma, heavy land and air defense, Cacophony, machine gun, minigun, blasters. Boy, that's a mouthful, huh? Eventually brought low, but in the time being, taking out, yeah, more than half of that defensive setup. Certainly quite powerful. Here we go. We just got to watch that commander upgrade to level 4. That's always cool. Legion commanders have that ability to upgrade. Typically, by the time the commanders upgrade, they've already been outscaled by T3, but it is still quite neat to see them go through their little metamorphosis. They gain some rail cannons. They gain some heavier artillery. They can build new units as well. I believe they can build spam units as well as they can. They get a little more build power, I think. They sort of upgrade everything as opposed to having the D-gun. Is it a worthwhile trade-off? It's worthwhile until you have a bunch of T3 headed towards your base and you need desperately to shut them down somehow. Suddenly, you'd probably wish that you had a whole lot of a different composition. Rocket Spiders firing into this mess of units right here. We've got T1 mixed in with T2. No T3, though, on this northern sector. We're going heavily into the sharpshooters. Pitbulls failing to keep out the smallest menace on the battlefield, the Tick. Oh, but somehow, or for some reason, we've Juno'd ourselves. Interesting. The blue team sending a Juno into the Ticks right here. The red team sending a Juno into the Ticks back here. Not bad. Tremor up on the high ground, though, firing away. Very annoying to deal with. Not a fabulous way of dealing with that. Wouldn't mind, again, seeing an air scout here. Just to confirm that. Traffic forced off line, though. Going to be retreating at this point to make sure that the commander stays alive. Those railguns are quite powerful. It can definitely do quite a bit of work. But there's only so much you can do against so many units. There they go. Reclaim Spiders paralyzing the Razorback and disassembling it molecule by molecule. Down it goes. Commander falls as well. Razorbacks pushing in. Big old fiend pull over on the northern side as well. These Razorbacks are on a warpath. They're going to blast down their brother in pink here. Shut down that Razorback, and that opens up this entire pathway right here for the purple commander to collapse on in. Those res spiders doing a fabulous job of paralyzing everything that they can see. They can even paralyze the dragons. Okay. Interesting. Don't think I've ever seen a dragon paralyzed, but there you go. The more you know. Razorback's having a hard time prioritizing here. We do have the Bastion coming up, the laser defense. Okay. Bastion will eventually clean up the majority of these. Essentially a pulsar that fires faster. Very powerful, to say the very least. The res spiders making it very efficient, though. Basically everything that went down right there, eaten up by the res spiders, save for the very front lines. Would have liked to see them sent forward before the Razorbacks, just to make sure that we're paralyzing everything and making it as efficient as possible. Sharpshooters having a field day, blasting away all this expensive T3. Marauders obviously a very prime target because they don't take much to bring down, but also they are fairly expensive, making them an ideal target for sharpshooters to not overkill. We still have no air player. Ah, there we go. Stannis, speak of the devil, manages to put down an air lab and start getting some of those units up and running. A little bit too little too late, though, as the dragons are already in the air. Nebuchadnezzar goes down without a single D-gun, and you can D-gun these, by the way. Very difficult to pull off, but if you can, definitely well worth it. Dragons headed directly towards the base, looking to do a little bit of counterattack damage. I like it quite a bit. Gonna find the base right here of Nebuchadnezzar, the purple commander. And latch onto those aphises, immediately starting to burn them to smithereens here. Build power should obviously be prioritized, but the dragons don't care. Boom goes the base in purple, and it all falls to the power of the mighty dragon. Unkillable beasts of the skies. There goes Stannis D-gunning down some of those dragons right there. Lovely stuff. You have to be quite careful. Yeah, flamethrower is quite powerful, but there you go. You can see de-gunning down the dragons. Quite an effective way of dealing with them if there's only a couple of them and you have no other option. Does this leave a little bit of napalm on the ground? It sure looks like it does, doesn't it? Now, one of the problems, of course, with having no base but all these reclaim spiders is you end up flooding quite a lot of metal to the market. Yeah. lot of metal goes to the market almost immediately here. Wouldn't mind it though, because obviously sending that metal around to the team means that more T3 production, more eco production, all of it starts to scale here. Our green commander has actually not scaled the economy since last time we checked in. Would love to see another Aphis or two pop down here. We've got tons and tons of metal. We're converting all of our energy, so I wouldn't mind seeing, yeah, a couple Aphises or two. Always important to continue to remember scaling. A shield was actually the solution that we came up with right here for those those tremors firing away. All right, it works. Certainly a very energy expensive way of solving, pardon me, that issue. But I think it works quite well, yeah. Having a sip of water here. Throat is parched after casting a couple of these games in a row. Had to try and prepare a couple of these ahead of time. The Marauders are quite nice, but I can't help but wonder if they've been outpaced at this point in the game. It might be time to start investing in Titans. Razorbacks, however, are still finding some value. Don't mind the Razorbacks whatsoever. Especially for dealing with big spams like this. I mean, you can see the ticks go down in a blink of an eye. No chance that any of the ticks are going to get through. The Razorbacks have the ability to retarget extremely quickly. Makes them killer for shutting down T1 spams, especially. Not bad against T3 either, though. They are, after all, the assault unit of the Armada Empire. Tremors eventually piercing the shields. Eventually, slowly but surely piercing the shields. It's one out of every, maybe 2 out of every 3 shots managed to break through the shields at this point. Not the end of the world, but obviously not a comfort either. Missiles, however, are going to have a much better, much easier time piercing those shield bubbles. Now, in lieu of a proper air player here, we're opting for Archangels. Never a comfortable moment when you're forced to use T2 Bot Lab anti-air as your sole means of shooting down dragons. Eradicator's quite good though, because they do such a high burst of damage, and if you build enough of them, it works. Here we go. The Infestor has been built. Have we focused on the Infestor yet at all? The Infestor is a hilarious unit, so it costs 300 metal and 5,000 energy. The Infestor has one ability. It can construct one thing, and what it can construct is a copy of itself. So the Infestors here have the ability to march forward and do a whole bunch of damage, all that sort of stuff. They can reclaim all the metal from all the bodies that they've marched past over here. In fact, I'd like to see these fight commanded so that we can actually eat up some of the metal that we're producing on the fronts here. But then, of course, their biggest talent is that if you keep one of them alive, which we have in the backline, a couple of them, then they can go ahead and rebuild their entire army from scratch. Yeah. They actually end up multiplying exponentially. It can become quite a problem. Pretty funny to see. The perfect name for them as well, the Infestor. So that's exactly what they do. If one of them finds their way out onto the field, they can slowly but surely build up an entire army of themselves, eventually taking over the world. Pawns leaking, or sorry, not pawns, ticks leaking through right here. I wonder if maybe we want to go for some Striders or some napalm launchers, anything that's going to be a little bit better at shutting these ticks down. We do have Juno missiles right here for Dia. Wouldn't mind seeing those firing around as well. Looks like we've sort of latched them onto this one sector right here, but the ticks are no longer running in that division. Always important to keep an eye on exactly where the enemy's ticks are. Look at that, Brick for Grace handing over the Razorbacks right here on the front line, hoping to hand them over to the Yellow Commander so that we can get a little bit more value out of them. Micro this all simultaneously. Keep it all working at peak efficiency. Often the logistics behind an army matter a whole hell of a lot more than the actual army. Getting the resbots out there, getting the right support units out there, getting whatever it takes out there to support your army in the most efficient way. usually matters a whole lot more than the actual army itself. Sharpshooters, for instance, the near perfect counter to the Razorback as far as T2 is concerned anyways. Meaning that just these couple of sharpshooter included in this mixture right here with the Razorbacks have turned this into an extremely efficient trade. It was about 6 Razorbacks going down right there for the blue team as opposed to, I think, about 4 for the red. Ah, we have the extra units pack enabled. Wonderful. So in the D3 gantry, the extra units pack enabled also means that we get to see some of these bad boys. I believe these were like a precursor version of the Razorback or something. They were some sort of a test unit that just got left in because they look so hilarious. The assimilator, and I'm not entirely sure why it's called the assimilator. It has nothing to do with assimilating units, no capture command or anything like that. But it can fire a nice long blast of laser fire out into the distance. Yeah, quite a funky little unit. Not meant to be used on the front lines like this, though. You're certainly supposed to be using them as sort of a long-range harassment unit. They don't look like it because they fire such a constant stream of energy, but they're definitely a harassment unit. You can see how far out they can shoot is ridiculous. This also should mean we have access to super bulwarks and the like. Yep, indeed. We have the pawn launcher. We have the epic pulsar. Dragon's Fury, all the cool static defenses. They're all here to see. Sharpshooters having a wonderful time blasting away these assimilators. Assimilator is actually a decent counter to the sharpshooter because they're fairly cheap but also can reach them. They're sturdy enough to fight them, but also, yeah, they have enough range to actually fire away at them. Ticks here obviously going to be a much more efficient counter, though. It's actually inefficient if a sharpshooter kills a tick. That actually is a loss of resources for the sharpshooter. It's a funny little interaction, but yeah, it actually means that you lose metal per shot with a sharpshooter killing a tick. I love the Banisher. Banisher missiles, probably one of the most satisfying sound and visual effects in the game currently. I have to say. We've also got laser tigers. 1,400 metal for a laser tiger. Quite expensive, actually. A beast of a powerhouse on the front lines, though. Here we go. Ready to march. I think we need to fight command these so that they do reclaim automatically, but in the meantime, it'll be just fine as they march forward here. Maybe spread them out a little bit better would help, too. Ugh. The losses here are incalculable. If you fight command them, they recycle all these resources, but right now they are just wasting it. Oh, no. Oh, no. Traffic absolutely blundering right there. Doing virtually nothing with thousands and thousands and thousands of metal worth of infestors right there. Yikes. Definitely not what we were hoping to accomplish right there with those unfortunately queued infestors in the backline. Big air swell heading across the map right now. Yeah, we're actually catching a bunch of the dragons out in the open. So because dragon production has been so on par, we didn't have very much fighter production. And obviously that can catch you in a weird situation where you have all these dragons, very expensive, very difficult to field, and suddenly you have no way to protect them. They all go down in the blink of an eye. It's the rock, paper, scissors of beyond all reason. And Marauders want to get that big clump of res bots. Any big group of res bots like that looks like a pretty good target. A lot of pings right now. Hot Ping Commander concerned with the dragons firing away into the main facility over on this side. I think the Razorbacks are a much more pressing concern. Razorbacks technically able to counter the dragons. One of those weird interactions, but technically the Razorbacks able to shoot up into the sky. Marauder pushing into this well-fortified zone over here. We have a Scorpion turret as well as a bunch of friendly Marauder, at least friendly for the Seafoam Green Commander. For the time being, that push will be well deflected. Resbots coming in right now to try and eat up whatever they can. Not gonna have much success there. We need to pull the trigger right here, though. I think these Razorbacks could go ahead and win the game if we send these across the map at this exact moment, and it looks like we will. I think these have enough firepower to blast through here. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. Razorback's actually able to shoot down the dragons. T2 fighters will be pulled, though. Lovely pull right there from the Green Commander. Has enough fighters to shoot down those dragons, keeping the airspace clear. The Ticks run forward, and the Razorbacks march on. Razorbacks have to do killer damage right here. This is too much metal to throw away. But we do have the res spiders in the back eating it all up. Lovely stuff. Res Spider's gonna make this so efficient because every scrap of metal that we lose pushing the enemy right here, well, about 70% of it will be sent back to our own labs to produce once again. Acceptable losses, certainly. Fusion reactors lighting up like a Christmas tree. Tons and tons of damage as the Razorbacks jump on top of these bases here. Multiple fusions popping all over the place. And indeed, the Razorbacks managed to break the front lines right here. Well, break the back lines, really, of the red team. Well, I know shurikens. The T2 lab, incapable of producing shurikens. Likely the answer right there for Sundarius. Not that it matters at this point, because already so much damage has been done. Assimilators moving forward here to try and do a little bit more damage. Res Spiders happy to eat up all this wreckage here as well. And you can see production is nominal now that we have the Res Spiders funneling metal, pardon me, back into the base over here. Big old explosion as the commander goes up in smoke right there. Assimilators continuing to be a nuisance in the backline. Pop goes the fusion reactor. Aphis will never see the light of day. Constructors going down. All the rest of it. Just like that, the red team's economy has collapsed. About half of the economic force at this point, relative to the red team here, you can see. Relative to the blue, pardon me. And indeed, they decide to tap out. I was going to say it's going to take a miracle for them to come back in the game, but I don't think the red team believes in miracles because they decide to throw in the towel, and indeed, in this game, beyond all reason, it will be our blue team that takes the winning crown. Lovely, lovely stuff right there from both of the teams. Love to see those fusion plays coming into, into more prominent play right there. I'm excited to see how that develops as we continue to see this game develop in general. Also excited to see how the spiders change and adapt and react to new situations over time. Sure hope you enjoyed today's cast though, and I will see you once again in the very next match of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.